Hey everyone, it's Denise Brown from caringourway.com and welcome to Caregiver Support Live. We take your questions and provide insights to help you figure out the right answer for you. We meet live on the first Friday of every month at noon Eastern Time, so you're always welcome to join us live. And then we post our recording, our archive, the day after. And you can watch our archive on our YouTube channel and on our community, caringourway.com. My co-host Jennifer is not feeling well today, so she won't join us, and I wish her a speedy recovery. Okay, so we have two questions today. Let's get started. The first question is actually a question I saw online, and it was written to a different advice columnist. And we're going to talk about that as well. So here's the question. So a family caregiver writes, I'm feeling trapped. This time of my life should be my golden years. I'm 66 years old, originally retired at 45, but I went back to work part-time to get out of the house. My mother, who is 90, has lived with my husband and me for 8 years now. She has no income, only Social Security, which is why she's living with us. She tells me I owe her to take care of her, and maybe I do. She raised me. I'm tired, frustrated, and want a life. There's so much to this situation, and I think we all want to keep a life during a life of caregiving, and that can feel like the hardest challenge. Time, worry, resources all go to caregiving, and it can feel like we come up short in what we need for our life. For instance, this letter writer didn't mention this, but I would imagine travel is difficult because of the responsibilities for her mom. It's also hard to be spontaneous and just feel like, yeah, we could plan something and just do something, even as simple as going out for dinner. All of that changes because of caregiving responsibilities. Even if we feel like, you know what, I'm not giving up a lot of money, you're still giving up a lot in order to make caregiving work. There's a couple things that are interesting about what she included in her question. She tells me I owe her to take care of her. I would call that a guilt trip. And that is a hard guilt trip that someone hands you, including our aging parent. Oh my. And it sounds like the letter writer is kind of struggling with this. Do I owe her? She raised me. Do I owe her? And I think that is an answer we all can come up with in a way that can work for us. I also want to mention too that we have a tendency to compare what it was like for our parents raising us to caregiving, helping our aging parents, and those situations are not comparable in any way. You can't compare them. Apples and oranges, very different experiences. We might think, you know what? Well, my mom raised me plus my siblings. She did it. Why is it so hard to just take care of her? It's because it's really hard. It's because it's very, very difficult. Again, you can't compare the two situations. We think about a caregiving experience as navigating 19 different systems. That's exhausting. Even in this situation where the mom is living with her, she's still navigating how to manage all of her mom's needs. And even if it doesn't feel like it's complex, like for instance, maybe she's like, but I don't do a lot of hands-on care and I'm not doing IVs at home, it's still complicated. It's still complex. And it's a very different relationship. A lot of people like to talk about parenting our parents. That isn't what it is. And I would really encourage you not to get caught up in that trap, and I'm using that word intentionally. Our parents had a very different relationship with us as we were growing up. And then the relationship is very very different for us as we're caring for aging relatives. It's very difficult to dictate to an aging parent what they do, how they do it, when they do it. And I would also tell you that that is a rocky road to go down. We want to ensure that our carees always have choice, that we are not the dictator, so to speak, in the situation. That's hard. That's hard. That's hard. We can have routines and schedules, and we can schedule time away and time off from our caregiving experience. Definitely. Definitely. We have our own values and priorities. It's important that we set boundaries for those values and priorities. But parenting our parent is only going to set up an incredibly frustrating situation for you and your aging parent. We do not become their parents. We might do things for them that we think, oh my heavens, wow, I just didn't expect that I would be doing this. And that's caregiving. It's not parenting. That's caregiving. It's caring for someone who needs help. It's very different than parenting children. And I will tell you that I think we've all felt trapped by a caregiving experience. Again, because we can't be spontaneous. It's difficult to make plans because we never know what will interrupt and disrupt those plans. And it is draining. It's a grind. It's 24/7, 7 days a week. There are no holidays during caregiving. There isn't someone who magically shows up at your door and says, okay, my shift, and then takes a shift, and then comes back and takes another shift. It's you. It's a lot. It's a lot. So how do we figure this out for the letter writer? And I think it gets down to a few questions that can be helpful as the letter writer figures out how to manage this experience. And I think it's, when do you feel most trapped? And then thinking about, what can I do to release a little bit of the tension of feeling trapped? And I think it's different for all of us. When do you feel trapped? What can you do to release a little bit of that pressure? The letter writer doesn't offer any insights about having help in the house. And that's hard. We know that's hard. We know it's expensive. And it could be that she just starts to think about, okay, what would it be like if I added help or more help? What are the programs in the community that I could look at, like Adult Day, so that I feel like a little bit of the pressure of feeling trapped is eased? So when do you feel trapped, and what can ease some of that pressure of feeling trapped? And I think it's helpful to think, what will work for us for the next 6 months? And then taking a look to see, okay, where are we in 6 months? What's been helping? What needs to be adjusted? What can we add? What can we take away? It's a challenge when money is an issue. For instance, her mom lives on Social Security, so finding a facility that could help is going to be difficult. However, her mom might qualify for programs and services in her community through Medicaid. Now, I want to make sure to mention that we cannot guarantee that Medicaid programs that exist today will exist in 2 weeks. Oh, that's the other uncertainty. It's worth looking into. What are the programs available for someone like her aging mom who has a very limited income? What programs could help? For instance, maybe it is a home health aide through a program funded by Medicaid who comes in a couple times a week, and that's the help. The daughter also could contact her local area agency on aging to see about respite programs. So what's available so she can take a break and her mom still continues to receive care. Again, we cannot know these programs will remain funded. However, on March 7th of 2025, area agencies on aging do have money to help a family caregiver take a break like this daughter. It's worth looking into. And to search for programs and services that could help, go to findhelp.org and benefitscheckup.org. Both of those sites allow you to search for help. Findhelp.org lists low or no cost programs that can help. Again, findhelp.org lists low cost or free programs that could help. And then benefitscheckup.org provides a list of services available to individuals within their zip code. So for this letter writer, for instance, she'd want to use her zip code to find programs and services that might be able to help her mom. Again, it's just thinking about what can ease the pressure of feeling trapped. Really thinking through, when do I feel most trapped and what can help ease that pressure? It's hard. It's also important to acknowledge that searching for help is exhausting, and trying to find the right help that really helps is also exhausting. Search, consider, try, and then when you need, take a break from it, because it can be really frustrating. That would be my suggestions for the daughter. Really look for what could help. Be aware of when you feel trapped, and then think through what could ease that feeling of being pressured in a trap. The individual who provided answers for this family caregiver said something that I want to mention because it rubbed me the wrong way. So this particular family caregiver wrote for advice. The professional who offered advice included this paragraph in his reply. It is always disturbing to hear a caregiver say they feel trapped. It makes caregiving sound like a barred cage or a penal colony for criminal exiles. Both images miss the loving spirit at caregiving's core. And I was bothered by it when I read it, and I'm horrified by it as I read it out loud. We all have a response to our caregiving experience, and we all are entitled to use the words to really describe what that's like. This letter writer feels trapped. Of course she does. Spontaneity is gone. Spontaneity is gone. Her retirement is completely changed. It's not a poor reflection on her or her mom or caregiving to express that honestly. If we don't express honestly what it feels like, we cannot get the right help and support. If you feel trapped, then the answer is to think about what eases the pressure. It is not to be admonished from someone who says you can't say that. Oh, like, I just, okay, so I just want to read again what the advice columnist included in his answer. It is always disturbing to hear a caregiver say they feel trapped. It makes caregiving sound like a barred cage or a penal colony for criminal exiles. Both images miss the loving spirit at caregiving's core. And I would say for us to express honestly what it's like is an act of love for ourselves. We cannot repress how we feel. In order to express ourselves in an honest, safe way is very important to our ability to get help. And that's an act of self-love. to say honestly how we feel. That's love. Oh, oh, I want to add how important it is to express yourself honestly to the right listener. And no one deserves a response like that. No one. It's very important to express yourself honestly to the right listener who can say, okay, the problem is you feel trapped. What can we do because you feel trapped? That's the answer. It's not to give someone a hard time because they've expressed honestly the reality of their life. They feel trapped. That's the reality. I'm still without words. I'm still without words. Yeah, that is terrible. That is a terrible response. One of the reasons that I started Caregiver Support Live is because I would read advice columnists and think, my gosh, they don't get it. That's not good advice. It's not good advice. So our fingers crossed goal is to actually offer support and insights that can help you find the right answers for you. What's right for you? Okay, here's our second question. I'm at my wit's end taking care of my dad. When do you know it's time for nursing home placement? I've applied for Medicaid benefits for him and am awaiting approval. This is such a good question, and it sounds like, oh, it's A, B, and C is the answer, and it is actually, whoa, much more complicated than that. Sometimes the answer depends on money. So for instance, this caree would be admitted to a nursing home and Medicaid would be the payer. It is difficult to find an available bed in a facility when Medicaid is the provider. Sometimes that's what drives the decision, which is, okay, we know that the payer is going to be Medicaid, which means availability is going to be limited and availability in a good facility is going to be limited. So we need to search now. And searching for the right facility might also mean being put on a waiting list. And it could be that you just add your caree's name to waiting list just to see when a bed in a facility you like is available. And then you can decide, okay, placement is right. There's a bed in a good facility. Let's take it. So sometimes the answer about when the right time is financial. If your carry has, for instance, a year or two of private pay funds, that might also dictate that the time is right now because a facility and a good facility might have availability for someone who can pay privately. And I appreciate that this is like hard and fast and a terrible business side to the nursing home industry, and it is how it works. A facility has to stay in business if they are being reimbursed for providing care through Medicaid, they are losing money, which is what their balance is all around. They are always trying to figure out how do we pay staff, provide care, and make sure that we have the money to do that. Which is why if your caree can pay privately, your options might be better. Which is why it's always a good idea to tour facilities, even if you say, we're not ready. You just want to know what's out there and what's available, particularly now. Facilities closed because of the pandemic, and I think we're going to see more facilities either being sold or closed because of cutbacks on Medicaid. If you're not sure it's the right time and you feel like you're at your wit's end, for instance, it's good to just tour facilities to see what's available. It's important not to be in a situation where you wake up one day and think, I can't do this anymore. I have to place my parent in a facility. It's just not working at home. And then not have options, which is why it's always a good idea to tour facilities just to know. And if there's a waiting list, go on the waiting list. You don't have to say yes when a bed is available. It's just helpful to have that option. Of course, if you can tour with your caree, that's the best case scenario. If you can discuss this with your caree, that's the best case scenario. If you're going to make a decision because your caree can't participate in touring and deciding, then you just want to keep track of how hard this is getting for you. And I want to say this the right way, but the only word that comes up for me is the suffering. For instance, if too much in your life is suffering, if the care that's being provided to your caree is suffering, then you'd want to keep on top of that. When does the suffering become intolerable for both of you? For instance, you might have help at home through a home care agency and you are hiring home health aides to come in and provide care. And you are noticing that there's this constant revolving door. It's new home health aides because either they leave the agency, they leave the career, or they're just sick, they just don't show up. And it might be that that revolving door is impacting you and your caree. There's still going to be a revolving door in a facility, but there might be some consistency that feels better for you. You might also really start to notice declines are increasing with your caree's disease process. And that might be just another trigger to start looking at facilities because you don't want to be in a situation where you think, oh, this decline is so significant that I can't provide the care. You want to pay attention to your body too. If you're doing a lot of hands-on care, what's the body telling you about what you can do in terms of lifting and transferring? It takes a toll. You also could reach out to your caree's doctor and just say, what facilities do you recommend in our community that I could look at just in case? It also can be helpful to know, just in case, if your caree is hospitalized and can't return home until they have a short-term stay in a facility for rehab with physical therapy, occupational therapy, perhaps speech therapy. It's helpful to know which facilities you want to go to, just in case. And if your caree is on Medicare Advantage, you'd also want to call Medicare Advantage and understand what their process is in terms of a short-term stay in a facility. Do they only contract with certain facilities in your community? You'd want to know that and which ones are best. Again, that's if your caree is hospitalized because of a decline or a change in status, or because they fell and something happened because they fell. And then they're going to be transferred to a facility for a short-term rehab stay for PT, OT, occupational therapy, speech therapy, or some kind of daily nursing care need. Medicare Advantage might have contracts with certain facilities in your community or your caree's community, and you'd want to be aware of that. Medicare Advantage is not going to pay long-term for a facility. It's only short-term after a hospitalization. Traditional Medicare is not going to pay long-term for placement in a facility. It's just short-term after a hospitalization. Now, I tell you all this with the idea that I have just absolutely exhausted you. It is exhausting. It is exhausting and it's overwhelming, and it can be paralyzing to think, oh my gosh, what do I do? It could be that your first next step is to simply call a couple facilities in your community to learn more about your options. I would also recommend that you call facilities directly rather than doing a Google search, because you might get caught up in for instance, a place for mom and their web. And a place for mom is going to catch you in their web and start reaching out and saying, I saw that you contacted us for you search for facilities. How can I help? They get paid when you use their service and place your family member through their service. If you can avoid using that service, it's helpful. And one of the ways to avoid it is to not do a Google search, because they have figured out how to trap you in their web with a Google search. You also could ask colleagues, friends, other family members about facilities that they've used. Word of mouth can be really helpful as a referral. And then based on what their experiences have been, you could contact those facilities that they've used and would recommend. We are in a situation right now where nothing is given and there's very little that's certain. And it's so helpful for us to stay on top of this so that we're not caught off guard. And I appreciate it that it's time consuming. During a time when you have very little time, I'm not going out on a limb by saying the last thing you want to do with the little time you have is call facilities and talk out what that would look like. And yet, if you just have a little bit of time once a week, just to stay on top of it, it can help in case you need to place your caree either short-term or long-term in a facility. Okay, as always, please reach out if you have questions, follow-up questions, or questions about how to actually really create the support that works for you. You can email us at questions@caringourway.com. You can also reach me by joining our community, which is caringourway.com. You can send me a private message through the community, and I'd be happy to connect with you that way as well. Thanks for all you do. And thanks for all you do, especially when people don't get how hard it is, that what you're doing is a significant challenge, a significant change in your life, and you're trying to figure this out. And you're trying to figure this out and stay kind and compassionate and gracious. That's hard. It's a drain on us. It's a drain on us. Okay, I hope you found this helpful. And if you have any questions about anything I shared that you'd like follow-up information, again, reach out. You can join caringourway.com. You can leave a comment below our video. You can also send a question to questions@caringourway.com. Okay, thanks so much for listening, and thanks for all you do. Bye-bye.